Business burnout can be so overwhelming. So many things to do and not enough time to do them. Deadlines to meet with time ticking away quickly. Multiple repetitive tasks that must be completed every single day. What if you could cut that list in half? What if you could automate 50, 60, 70% of what you do every day? You would have less stress. You could get more done in less time. And your company would make more money. Less stress and more money? See how RPA can change your day. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode. We are back.
We are
back another day, another wonderful day to talk about automation and how it's changing the world in a positive way.
yes. Oh, by the way, your background looks fake. I know it's real, but it looks really nice background, man. That's
Listen, that's so interesting. I was just complimenting someone yesterday about their wonderful, real, fake-looking virtual background. It's amazing when you can have a real background that looks pretty decent. So yeah.
Well, see, now you can just when you move, just take a snapshot of that, save that as a screen, as a saver, right? As a photo, say, hey, I'm always at home, right?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Well,
I said, I want to thank everybody for joining, man. And wherever you're watching this from, we're on multiple platforms right now: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and wherever you are, let us know what country you're in, state. We also want to know if you're watching this live or replay. This is big too. Yeah. If you got any questions during this episode, post them. The only dumb question is the one that's not asked. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's gonna be a lot of questions asked. I mean, if we get those guests asked today, because our guest today, speaking of that was a great intro video that you put up there, because you showed the difference of it being done, RPA being done manually and being automated. And our guest has a lot of experience in that. She's been in the medical industry for a couple of decades, I believe. I'll let her tell her story, but I'm not gonna give a whole lot away. But she's making a big dent in the medical industry with RPA. And you know me, I love RPA. I love having RPA conversations. And I felt like I've talked to a lot of people in different industries that really know their stuff. She knows her stuff in the medical industry, and I'm excited to be able to have her finally on our show. And those people that are out there that are in the medical industry, or those who know someone in the medical industry, which is pretty much 100% of the people, they need to be able to pass this recording on and let them see what it's all about, because it's going to be a game changer.
Man, you hit the nail on the head. And speaking of share, thank you. Please, if you're watching this, share this, because sharing is caring. I did get that from the Care Bears, but they were on to something. Because when you share something and it's insightful for someone else, you never know what that share can do for someone else. You never know.
Right.
The videos that people have shared with me that literally taking my life to different levels. Right.
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I'll say most of our business has come from other people sharing what we do, right? It hasn't really been direct. The ones that have been direct have actually just contacted us directly, but a lot of them have been because people know what we do and they know people that need our service. Mm-hmm. So sharing is caring. I like the Care Bear line though. Yeah. It's really cool. I haven't heard that. That tells you, just telling your age to me, by the way.
Well, let me put that Care Bear stare on you, man. Before I do that, let me bring up my special guest, Natasha Schlinkert. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, it's nice to be here with you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, it's fantastic to sit with someone who has insight, who not only has insight, but has actually done some wonderful things in the industry and has helped businesses already.
Yeah, thanks so much. I always say healthcare and revenue cycle management was my first love. And then start to get to know RPA over the last 7 years. And RPA is kind of my forever love. I get to do revenue cycle management. I get to be in healthcare, but I get to do it in a really meaningful way. And it's just so exciting. And I love it.
That's really cool. And you said you've been in it for about 7 years or so. Same here. And you were in the medical industry for a while, so I mean, obviously you saw a gap between what the industry was missing, and then you found out what RPA was all about, and you sort of bridged that gap. Is that tell us a little bit about your story, how your background of how you were involved with in the medical industry before RPA, and then how that transitioned into getting involved with RPA.
Yeah.
And Natasha, right before you say that, I'm gonna give a little snip. It's a little snip of your bio here, and then I want you to continue that. So, as the CEO and founder of Inbot Health, she is passionate about transforming the healthcare revenue cycle management industry with innovative and efficient solutions. With over 20 years experience in the RCM, she has a proven track record of improving various healthcare organizations' financial and operational performance, from acute care hospitals and physician practices to non-for-profit entities and ambulatory surgery centers. Natasha, thank you for your work, and please let us know and finish the question that Wilton asked you and continue on with this wonderful bio, please.
Yeah. So, I think it's really funny because when you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? Do they ever say, I want to be in revenue cycle management and healthcare? Like, no, nobody ever says that, right? So the way that it kind of fell into my lap, my parents were attorneys in Southern California. They owned a law firm, and they had several clients that were physician practices, dental practices, and didn't want me getting in trouble over the summer times. And so they had me there filing records and answering phones and scheduling appointments, and started learning the medical billing and getting eligibility and authorizations from 16, 17 years old. And so, yeah, that's kind of the way I fell into it, and then just continued on that pathway. That was the experience. I kind of fell in love with it, and went on to do lots of analytics, just because as a director, you need to know what's going on with the data. Why is the payers behaving this way? Why are we getting these denials? How can we stop it from happening? And so, and then waiting for IT teams to get to the tickets in the queue to make those reports. And you've got deliverables to the CFO. They want to know what's going on. When is the money coming? And so you just kind of teach yourself to evolve into what you really need to be able to manage these teams of people. And so it went from one position to the next, and have held positions all the way from, interim chief internal auditor for 5 hospital healthcare system to managing overseas teams of over 15,000 people in the VP of 14 departments in revenue cycle management, everything from the insurance verification, authorizations, claim statusing, payment posting, denial recovery, analytics, patient engagement, early out. So everything from hospital procurement and the way that who's going to change the bed sheets in the ER today, all the way to, what do we need to do strategically in market analysis over the last 25 years. So about 7 years ago, we just found that the attrition rates were really high, and we couldn't get to the small balance volume credit balances, and we needed to do something for these things that weren't the highest priority, but we can't just ignore them. And so we hired a team to come and help us do automation, and it was a mess. It was clunky. It was a tech company that just didn't really understand healthcare very well. And so we had to tear it down and start all over. And I got knee deep in it and really understood and helped write that logic. Okay, if this happens, then what? If this happens, then what? And that's kind of how I fell in love with RPA.
So that's a great story, by the way. I like that. I mean, obviously the 25 years of experience has allowed you to be able to identify these different areas of opportunities for automation and being able to build a logic yourself. But that transition, you said it was very clunky when someone else built it, and when you start going through it, were they part of the RPA industry? Were they looking to do some automation? I mean, what kind of automation were they doing? And because you were able to figure it out yourself, how did that transition happen? How did you figure that out yourself and say, okay, we don't need them. I can do this. I can figure this out myself. How did that happen?
Yeah. So when we first built it, I think some of the challenges were that we didn't know anything about automation. What are the bot's capabilities? What are the bot's limitations, right? And then they really didn't understand if you, and healthcare is just so nuanced. If you do one thing differently, it's going to affect 10 other things down the road. If you change the insurance without attaching it to all the other dates of service that fall within that scope or range of when the patient was eligible, then none of the other ones are going to get approved. If you don't take that adjustment at payment posting, then you have all these open balances and your days in AR increase, and you have people that are working on things that they don't necessarily need to. So from that learning experience, when we turned on the bots and we had them go, it was accomplishing what it was supposed to, but it wasn't taking into consideration all of the other things that it would be impacting. And so from there, I was able to say, okay, let's first think about the revenue cycle as a revenue cycle. And when you change one piece of it, how are we actually going to make sure that, you know, we're setting this up for success and to make it dynamic? So in the future, if I'm going to check the claim status, what am I going to do with it? Do I want that to go back into, do I want the bot to update the payer? Well, if we do, then that leads into another automation. What happens when that payer is updated? Do we need to attach it to other dates of service? Do we need to have the bot sending claims? Do we hold claims for review? Do we want them to be released? If the bot identifies during claim status that there was a payment, do you want that payment to be posted? Well, that depends, because if you tell the bot to post the payment and it was just finalized yesterday and your payment posting team is 7 days behind, then the bot's going to post it. And then when those are imported, then it's double posted. And now you've got an accounting nightmare, right? So just learning through some of those things. And after doing it time and time again, you kind of know when we talk to clients and they say, we want to automate our payment posting. And then you say, okay, what happens if you have a denial from Medicaid secondary for OA23? Do you want us to adjust those or leave it open? Do you want us to adjust any other denials? And they say, nope, just post the payments and we'll do the denials. Okay, but what about this scenario? And they're like, oh, yeah, we definitely want to do that. So you get to the point where you know which questions to ask and in every automation and understanding that really kind of.
You know, I know I'm taking over this, Rob, but I'm sorry about that. You know, I think you brought up, you're hitting some key points, and I think this is where a lot of the misunderstanding of the capabilities of RPA happens, because we've done a lot of work where they think it's very easy to do. It's, you know, because you ask all those certain questions going in and know what questions to ask, it eliminates you having to go back, eliminates delays, eliminates frustration. And when people try to do it themselves, like you said, you had this before you got involved, they came in and they said, oh, I'm pretty sure they knew how to do some type of automation, but they didn't know the true logic behind it all, right? So, you know, for you to come in there and be able to say, okay, you know what, this is exactly how you do it. You think you're doing A, B, C, D, but there's A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, B 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All these things you have to add in that they're not even aware of. And that's why it's so important to have someone like you to be able to go over there and show them, because obviously the process is already working, but there's so many things that you really have to understand to really smooth it out. And when they have an expert like you come in there, it really makes things seamless, because they'll be able to understand, like, oh wow, I didn't really realize that, you know, and you'd be able to find things that they didn't even realize that they could potentially do. So, you know, I feel that pain as far as being able to build these logics and people not understanding, and them trying to do it themselves has just been a nightmare. So having someone like you in the medical field is very interesting. It's very cool to see that happen. And yeah, so anyway, Rob, I know you're gonna ask some questions and you have some things going on, so I don't want to take over.
That's great, man. That's great. Actually, had a question come in from David. Said, what types of process? Thanks for your question, David. Too. What types of processes are you seeing automated most often? Like, what are you seeing? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, that's, it kind of comes in waves. And I always think it's really interesting. So there was, I would say the two that we automate the most, believe it or not, is payment posting and claim status. And the reason that I thought that was kind of odd was when I was first getting into this, when I first started in a bot, I figured, okay, many of these EHR and practice management softwares, they have like automated payment posting. Yes, but when it imports the remit, there are several that are not, they don't make that connection for whatever reason. It might be, you have Medicare for the patient, but you don't have their secondary. It was a Medicare crossover claim. Now that payment's coming in. Well, it can't make that connection because that payer is not attached to the patient's account. So there's several scenarios like that. And like the secondary write-off adjustments and those types of things. So payment posting automation has been probably our number one top request, followed by claim statusing. You do get claim status in some of the EHR and practice management software, but it doesn't always give you all of the information that you need. And then what do you do with it from there, right? So if you're checking claim status and you see that there was a COB denial, well, the bot's already in Availity or Navinet or wherever the bot's gathering this information. So why not just have the bot go ahead and check the eligibility, see who that other payer is, especially those Medicare Advantage plans, et cetera. So having the bot go back and add those, I would say those are probably the top two. We're starting to get more into denial appeal letters, where it's a templated appeal letter. The bot can either use like ChatGPT or Bard to go and create a, appeal letter for an EKG for a 56-year-old male that was denied by X insurance company. And so the bot will take these pieces of information and say, write me a denial letter for blah, blah, blah. Or you have a templated appeal letter or a payer-specific reconsideration form or appeals that are online on the payer portal. We can e-fax them to the claims appeals department, or for like those work comps that only accept paper, they're still working with dinosaurs. And we have to save them into folders by insurance carrier name or which address they're going to. And then at the end of the night, in the middle of the night, when nobody's using that printer and it's not disturbing anybody, then it will go ahead and print those collated by insurance. So we'll have horizontally Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and then vertically Cigna, et cetera, et cetera. And so somebody just picks up that stack, puts it in an envelope, and off it goes in the morning.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And I have another question. I know we have a couple of questions we got to put out there, Rob, but I think this is sort of important. Especially people that are maybe listening or want to know more.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of medical out there. We know there's a lot that aren't taking full advantage of RPA. We know that, and it's putting them in a position where they don't understand what they're missing out on. We try, like I told you before, when we talked, we try to dive into it, but they say we're too busy, we don't have time for this. It's like, we're trying to help you out with that. We're really trying to help you out that. Even with your experience, how do you, if I was to come to you, what would you say? Like, okay, I want to know more about RPA in the medical industry. What would be your approach for someone to understand a little bit more about how you can help them? Well, how do you approach that? If you're just someone that's just doesn't know nothing about it.
Yeah, I think one of the most common misconceptions is that, the bots are going to come in and either take over somebody's job, or if the bot makes a mistake, then it's making a whole bunch of mistakes very rapidly. So you have this huge mess. And so I think the two really important things to remember is, one, the bot can only do what you tell it to do. It can't just go off on its own and do something different, right? So as long as you have tested the logic thoroughly, and the ways that we do that is either in a test environment, or have the bot go all the way through all the steps. And then at the end, instead of clicking save, click cancel. And then we have the bot go through and click cancel over and over and over on all kinds of different scenarios, so that you see all the things it might run into, and then review that output file so that manager or the director or whomever is looking at the subject matter expert can say, oh, in this scenario, we would have done something else. So we can add that logic before we push it into production. Sometimes we have the bot go, let's say we're doing a payment posting. So we'll have the bot go and extract the information from the EOB or the remit and put it onto a spreadsheet, apply the logic, and then say post true or false in a column. So then you'll see on a spreadsheet what the bot would have done if it was in the system. Once they feel comfortable with that, then we put it into the system. So there are ways to make sure. And I think the other part of that, a lot of times what we find is managers and directors will see that there's so much more work being done by their staff that they never really realize. They've been doing it for 20 years or 15 years or 10 years or even 5 years. And they get so fast because they're doing it repetitively that there's a million decisions being made. And when you have to actually write out that logic and all those decisions that are being made, oh, and if this, then this, and if this, then this, then you really start to think, wow, they're really smart. They know what they're doing. They've got this stuff down. They're doing it so quickly. And I find that directors and managers find a new appreciation for their staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree with you there. We've seen that as well. And, I think a lot of the ones that are actually doing they've done it for a long period of time. Some of your executives or even your managers don't realize what they're doing, and sometimes someone doesn't do it the same as the other person, right? So now you got to say, okay, well, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? Now you got to figure out how to best suit that and put it all into automation. So yeah, that's a great point. All right, Rob, I know. I'll let you go from there. All right.
Excellent. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. So, if anyone's been watching this so far, they've already gotten a couple answers to this question. Is there really value in healthcare automation? Clearly, we've already stated and shown how it can be, but maybe let's add a little component onto that. What types of return on investments are people looking at? Because we know that there's a value. We know there's a value, but what's important is understanding what that value looks like. What kind of ROIs are we seeing, or have you been seeing?
Yeah. So if you imagine, what if you could hire that one employee that, the one you always feel bad because every time there's a huge project or something that needs to be done, that's the person you can rely on. They're going to get it done. They're going to be able to figure it out. They're the one, right? And you put more on them than you probably should, and you feel a little bit guilty, but you just know that it's going to be done. So imagine if you could hire that person, and that person will do a project for 4 to 6 weeks, and then it just starts doing itself. And then you could give that person another project, and it just starts doing itself. And then you could give them another project. And that person works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It doesn't have breakups. It's not crying on Facebook about its peers, right? There's like all of these things, and there will always be human value there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? There are some things that bots will never be able to do the way that humans do. Right. And there will always be exceptions and nuances. If you're in healthcare, the only thing that stays the same is that everything changes. So when things change, then there's going to need to be those people there to say, okay, now that this has changed, how do we want to direct the bots? How do we want to improve the way that we're doing things? So when we think about processes like deductibles at the beginning of the year, for one of our clients, we automated holding those claims and checking eligibility every 72 hours. And when they check the eligibility, if there's a remaining deductible amount, continue to hold that claim. Once that deductible remaining amount has hit a certain threshold, say $50, $20, $5, or $0, then go ahead and remove that claim hold, release the claims. And we saw a 30% increase in revenue in Q1 when we went back and looked at the waterfall, right? So we're looking at how much money came in this month, but the money that came in this month may have been for claims from last month and the month before and the month before. But when you look at 4 dates of service in Q1, when you're looking in July, how many of those got paid versus having to chase patients? And we had a 33% increase in revenue for that client.
Wow.
So certainly value.
That's, I know you have some more, but I'll wait on that, piggyback off this. That's great to know the financial value. I think as an executive, as an owner, you want to see that those financial. You want to see, okay, manually. What are you doing manually? How's RPA gonna, substitute that and say, show me a return on our investment? But what we found out as well, I'm sure you have too, what you mentioned earlier, is that, people may be afraid at the beginning that they're going to lose their job. But what they realize is like, this is a relief for them, total relief for them. And makes a totally different it's a game changer for them. And once they understand that, the value that people are getting out of it by not being able to do these processes anymore.
Yeah. We had another client that was started to automate their payment posting for their clients. Within 6 months, they were able to move from payment posting to AR, right, where they had all these volumes they weren't able to get to. 68 employees, 68 FTEs off of payment posting, revenue cycle management company, and they signed a new client that ended up needing like 40 FTEs that they didn't have to go out and hire. They were able to pull those folks into doing some AR follow-up and that kind of stuff. So there's been lots of ROI opportunities that we've seen over and over and over.
Wow. I'll go ahead. I know you have some more before we're running out of time, but I want to go ahead and let you do your thing.
No, that's good. This is the whole purpose of this dialogue, and I hope that everyone who's watching is starting to get some insight. First of all, automation used the right way makes your life easier. It's not about replacing jobs. It's about allowing humans to do jobs that they want to do. And it's also about heightening the efficiency of your operation so that you can stay in and scale that business if possible. But I think the most important thing is to get educated first, to get educated and to get with people who understand what they're doing so that you don't waste time. We know that a scalpel can save a life or it can take a life. Okay, I feel like RPA is a tool, and Natasha, I want to know, what do you think? What do you see as the future? What is the future for automation in healthcare? Like, what do you see? What do you think?
Yeah, I have been going to these conferences for 25 plus years, right? And the conversations were always around new regulations that are coming out, payer behaviors, nuances. How do you get these things paid? And what are the challenges? And I would say in this last 6 months, every single conference that I've been to, every session is either completely dominated by the topic of automation, creating efficiencies, RPA specifically, or some element of how does automation apply to this specific topic, whether we're talking about pricing transparency or whatever it is that we're talking about. Automation is always a part of that conversation. And where there was fear of that change before, particularly after COVID, the staffing challenges that hospitals and practices are facing, I think we're certainly going to see that change shift, and that the sooner clients get on board and start with that automation, the healthcare payers are doing it. They've been doing it. They're going to continue doing it. And so they're going to be able to do more denials, review more claims, send back more back and forth. And so I think if healthcare providers do not start doing this now, they're not going to be able to keep up with the amount of paperwork required to get reimbursed.
Yeah, well said. And I think we've seen that jump. You've actually seen the conversations happen more and more. People are starting to dial in on like, okay, what is this? Where do I look? What I look for it? So it is, and I think it's important, especially the medical is obviously a very important industry for all of us, right? And being able to streamline that and automate that is so important, because we need those people to be on the front line. We need those people to be doing what they do best, not pushing paper around and things like that, right? Moving data around. They need to be where it's important. And the sooner businesses and organizations understand that, you can tell we work from home, right? I don't know if you hear my kids in the background, but that's the great thing about working about automations, something like this, you can work from home. So anyway, but it makes a big difference when people get on board, because what's going to happen is that the sooner they get on board, the sooner they see how much benefit it can bring them. And we talk about this all the time. It's like you get on board now, or you're going to lose out later.
Yeah,
that was a cheer. That was a cheer in the background. You heard the simultaneous.
Yeah,
get on board now. He's like,
yeah.
They sound like happy kids. So
they're having a blast back there. Yeah, so it's like, I have my door closed and everything, I can still hear them. So yeah, but they're having a blast.
Natasha, give us your some final words of wisdom for the folks as we sharing your contact information. Also, just give us your words of wisdom, and then let folks know how they can get in contact with you and get in contact or get around the resources that you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say no matter what industry you're in, find somebody, especially when you're trying to automate a process, find somebody that understands your process. If it's retail, if it's finance, if it's banking, or if it's healthcare, make sure you ask the right questions. Ask questions that only people that truly understand your industry would know. Questions like, I don't know, how many units of this can you bill, or those types of things. What are the most common denial codes from insurance carriers, and how do you combat them, right? So if you're asking the right questions, you'll know whether it's the right partner. That would be my biggest lessons learned of the decade, would be make sure that you're with the right partner, whether it's with us or with somebody else. Just make sure they understand, because it's going to remove those bottlenecks, shorten the time to production, and definitely give you more bang for your buck and less run for your money, for sure.
Yeah, that is. And I think if people are really trying to reach you, to say, because I think it's very important. You brought up a good point. Get someone to talk to. And when I had a conversation with you, the reason why I felt so comfortable talking with you is because you were very clear on what you do. And I think people have to. It's hard for people to understand what you're capable of doing, but if they are sitting down here and they are looking to they're in the medical industry, or know people that are in the medical industry, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to your point, we only do healthcare. We only do revenue cycle management. That's what we know. Our teams, it's not just me. Our teams have worked for revenue cycle management companies for a really long time. So we know healthcare. Anybody that comes to us from another industry, I'll be sending them to Wilton or somebody that understands that industry, for sure. So you can reach us. We're on LinkedIn. We are always on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook, where you can email us. Our website, www.inabothealth.com. Just send us a message. Click that, request a demo button, fill out the contact form, and we'll get back with you right away. You can reach us by calling us anytime, 888-341-1009. And we're always glad to talk with you and see how we can help.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you for everybody for watching this too, and you're sharing your comments, asking your questions. Thank you, Jacqueline Way. Yes, you are so right. The most important part, ask the right questions. That's what John Maxwell says. To get the best answers, ask the best questions. So yeah, come with your questions and understand the questions about your organization, your company. Ask around inside the organization. Get those questions, and those questions have answers. And we have wonderful people like Natasha that can guide you in the right direction. What are you gonna say, Wilton?
No, I was going to say, is there any last words of wisdom that you want to share with us? And because I think for us, well, I'd like to do one thing. Besides, we're going to put all your credentials, all your information on our Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. They're going to be there for everybody here. So anybody that's looking at this live, anybody's looking at this as a recording, if you want to figure out where to find we'll attach all that information. So all I got to do is 1-2 clicks away, and boom, you're there. So we're there. All right.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. You know, I've done so many LinkedIn Live events and I've done so many other things, but anytime that I get a chance to talk with you two, it's always fun. It's always real. It's always informative. And I just can't thank you enough for having me as a guest today.
So we definitely appreciate you, and it was fun. We've been talking about you prior to this, like, you know, we're excited about this. Not only that, next time, you know, we're making some changes when we're going to bring you back on. Hopefully, we'll have some more data to share that you can share with our team, because we definitely want to bring you back out of the park too. But it's been great, so thank you. It's been an honor.
It's been a fantastic pleasure and honor, Natasha. Hope everybody enjoyed it. You got the replay here. The RPA Show, the show where you might just learn something you didn't know. Until next time.
Simply automate. Automation made simple. Simply automate.